Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Venus and today I'm going to talk about all the books that I read in the month of October. It was a pretty good reading month. Still haven't had a 5-star read in quite a while, but I did have quite a few 4-star reads, 4.5 stars. I think overall it was a pretty good reading month. I had 3 DNFs, so of course we're going to start with those and then go from my least favorite up to my favorite reads of October. My first DNF was The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. I was pretty upset that I didn't enjoy this book. It is getting really good reviews, so it's definitely just me, but I was very bored by the plotline for this, especially compared to her book from last year that I really enjoyed, Spells for Forgetting. In this book, we are following June, and she is in a family that have basically cursed women. The book opens up with her grandmother passing away, and she is now concerned that this curse is starting to affect her. She's getting symptoms of it, and she's starting to hallucinate, and she keeps seeing this door. And this is a time travel mystery because she's also trying to figure out what happened to her mother many years ago, who kind of just went missing after giving birth to her. And I was just really bored. It's a very slow moving book, and there was nothing that I found that I could think of that would happen in this book that would make me want to continue reading it. So unfortunately I did DNF that book. The next book I DNF was Not the Witch You Wed by April Asher. This is a paranormal romance, and another book I just couldn't get into. I did not enjoy the banter with this at all. We are following a witch and a shifter, a wolf shifter, and they have to fake date because it is time for, I guess, in their world, they need to be matched or mated with someone, and so they decide to do fake dating. They did know each other many years ago when they were teenagers, and the male character broke the witch's heart. So she's bitter, she has an attitude, and immediately I was just like, I can't go the whole book with dealing with this, so I DNF'd it. And then another unpopular opinion for me is My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a slasher, and I was also very bored with this book. This seems to be a very well-loved book, but for me, I just could not get into it. The first chapter I found very gripping and exciting. There's some deaths in the first chapter, or disappearances. I think they're deaths, but I was very involved. I was excited. We're following a teen who is obsessed with slasher movies, and she's half Native American, and her father is an alcoholic, and her mother's kind of missing. She lives in town, but she's not really, she didn't help raise her, or she disappeared. As far as I know, that's the part up to I got to. I think I read about 100 pages into this. The main character, I think her name was Jade, she likes to go off on these tangents about slasher movies, and she's thinking, you know, her current life is going to turn into a slasher. There's something happening in this town. And I just felt it moved along very slowly. I couldn't get into it, and Jade's tangents on these slasher movies became quite boring and annoying for me. This is, again, a well-loved, I think this is a series. This is actually a series that people love, but I just could not get into it. The book was like over 400 pages, and there was no way I was going to read all of that with all the tangents that she went on, and it wasn't enough action for me. When I read a slasher, I need some action pretty consistently, and this just was not fulfilling that for me. All right, so let's talk about the books that I actually did finish in the month of October. First up is a nonfiction book. Any books that I did a vlog on, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. I'm just going to give the name, the genre, and my rating. If you are interested in all of my thoughts on any books that I vlogged, then please check out the vlogs that I've linked below. The first book is a nonfiction, and it is The Woman in Me by Britney Spears, and I really, really enjoyed this book. I don't typically rate nonfiction books, especially memoirs, so I'm not going to give this a rating, but if you are a Britney Spears fan, then I definitely recommend you check it out. She does go into detail, surface level detail, about some things that happened, including with Justin Timberlake and her conservatorship, or whatever that's called. So it was very interesting to read about. Next up is 2 Minutes with the Devil by Matt McKelly. This is a novella that I read on, I can't remember if it was Kindle Unlimited or if I purchased it, but I did read it as an ebook. It's pretty short. It was over 100 pages, and it's supposed to be kind of like a book set in the 80s, but like a Bloody Mary type book where kids will say things in the dark, and you know, you have to keep your eyes closed, or the devil will come after you. And I was hoping, as a novella, for it to be very scary and creepy and gory and slashery-ish, and it was not. It was more like trying to be kind of a coming-of-age story with these like missing children, and the ending just did not pay off for me at all, and I just was really let down by this. It didn't even really have any creepy parts with the 2 minutes with the devil game that these kids were playing. It just didn't do what I needed it to do, so I gave this book 2 stars. Next up is Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw. This book is on a lot of people's fall reading recommendations, so I decided to check it out, and I did not like it. So this book is about a cursed town named Sparrow, where 3 women who like to seduce men who were stealing married men from their wives. They were accused of witchery and drowned, and so every year after that, I think this originally happened over 100 years ago, every year after that they would come back and possess a young local girl, and that girl would end up killing one of the boys in the town. And this is just something that's accepted, and the town goes along with it. Tourists come for that, and it's a whole thing. And the whole time I'm reading it, I'm like, does no one question this? Why is this just okay? But a boy named Bo does come to town, and he supposedly doesn't know anything about these things that are happening, and this happens at the end of a school year, like right before summer. They do bonfires, they wait for like the signs that this is happening, and it's just a whole celebration. And Bo comes and he's like, why do you guys just celebrate this and accept it? Do you really believe this? Why are these murders not investigated? Like, you know, he actually has questions and common sense. And the main character, Penny, she is holding a lot of secrets in, and she kind of takes him under her wing, if you will, and I just did not like this book at all, and I personally wouldn't recommend it as a fall book to read. It takes place in the summer, first of all, but then outside of that, it's just not, when you get to the part, the explanation of why these 3 women were killed, it's not creepy at all. It's pretty stupid. They kind of just hate on men, and then it goes from there, and I gave it 2 stars, so. Next up, another unpopular opinion. I'm very sad that I did not like this book at all. This is Confessions by Kanai Minato. This is a like thriller horror book that everyone talked about the last 2 years, I think. Everyone loved this book, which is funny because it was written in 2008, translated in 2014, but for some reason it became very popular over the last couple years. So I decided to read it this year, and I did not get the hype at all. So in this book, we are following a teacher whose 4-year-old daughter had just recently died. She was murdered, and this teacher is giving her last lecture to her class. I think they are like the equivalent of 5th or 6th graders in the United States. And she is revealing that she knows that 2 of the students in her class murdered her daughter, and she is on a revenge mission. And the weapon, I'll say, that she used to try to get back at these 2 children, I didn't like at all. And I don't know if it's because I'm a nurse and it almost became kind of offensive to me that this was used. I think the author was just trying to bring social awareness to this specific thing, but I didn't like at all how it was used. So that's part of the reason why I didn't really love this book. I didn't think that that was that big of a twist. But also after she gives her lecture and she leaves you on this like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she did that. We go into listening or reading about these like 6 other points of views, and it just became very repetitive. I didn't find it shocking. I think I went into this with way too high expectations, and I just overall found it boring. So I am giving this 2.5 stars. Next up is Nestlings by Nat Cassidy. I am sad to say I did not enjoy this book either. I did vlog this book, so I won't go into great detail about it, but it is a new horror book that came out. Nat Cassidy is the author of Mary, which is a book that I absolutely loved this year reading. And this one, I just found it another boring, except for, I will say, the scary parts in this book are very well written. I mean, I will definitely say he is a fantastic writer, and I will read more of his books as they come out, but for this one, it was just a miss for me. It's being called a cross between Rosemary's Baby and Salem's Lot, and I will definitely agree with this. I think maybe it's because it's kind of leaning towards kind of like a vintagey horror aspect, where there were just parts that I just found, like I said, extremely boring. So I gave this book 2.5 stars. And the last book in the 2.5 star range is Tastes Like Candy by Ivy Tholen. This is a teenage slasher thriller. It takes place in a carnival. I was hoping I was gonna love this book, and unfortunately I did not. It was mostly because this book centers around teenage girls. The author wrote these girls very annoying and obnoxious. I could not stand any of the characters. It was just hard to get through. I'm having a hard time finding a slasher that is as enjoyable as Cirque Berserk. I keep bringing that book up, or it's a novella. I just loved it. It did exactly what I wanted a slasher to do, and I'm having a hard time finding one that is just as good. And this book just didn't deliver for me. The characters, like I said, were very annoying. The killer reveal was lame, and I didn't like the motive behind it. I thought it was just not very inventive. I will say though, the kills in this book in the carnival were very enjoyable and well written. I did like the writing, which is why I finished it. I was hoping that it was going to get better, but unfortunately it didn't, so I gave this book 2.5 stars. I do have this author's other book, Mallrats, that I hope to get to. That is also a horror book, and I pray that I like that book. Now we are getting into the 3-star range, and first up, or two of them, are graphic novels, both 3 stars. The first one is Garlic and the Vampire, and that is by Brie Paulson. Graphic novel, super cute, children's middle grade graphic novel about Garlic. She lives with a bunch of other little vegetables that work in a garden, and a vampire supposedly moves into or appears in this house or castle that's kind of far away in the background from their little garden, and Garlic has been initiated to go and try to figure out why this vampire is here, because she's Garlic and she should be able to protect herself. And one of the vegetables are just such a little bully. I think it was Carrot that was the bully. He was like, basically like, you go and do it, nobody cares if you make it back or not. I mean, it was cute. It was a cute, fun, spooky graphic novel. I definitely recommend it if you want to get in the spirit of Halloween or, you know, creepy season, spooky season. And the next graphic novel is Seance Tea Party by Ramina Yee, and this was another just cute, this was more like teenage, preteen age group for this one, and this is about a girl who has a ghost that lives in her house, who initially when she was little was kind of like her invisible friend, but come to find out it is a ghost. And the young girl in this book, I cannot remember her name, or in this graphic novel, she is kind of at that age where her friends are starting to get into like having little love interests and gossiping and makeup and all that stuff, and she still just wants to have fun and play. And so she kind of just hangs out with this ghost all the time, and then she kind of starts to finally transition, and the ghost is trying to find her way, and it's cute. It was a very fun, very fall-oriented book. The graphics in it were really cool, and I gave it 3 stars. Next book that I gave 3 stars to was My Darling Girl by Jennifer McMahon, and I thought this was just okay. This was in a reading vlog, so I won't go into too much detail, but this is a thriller. It's about I cannot remember names, I'm sorry, and the books are on my shelves, and I just don't feel like getting them. So, because, okay, I'm gonna tell you why. I filmed this, and my memory card corrupted. So now I'm refilming it, and it's kind of exhausting. I am just not in the mood to pull those books off my shelf right now, so I am sorry, but I will be posting pictures up next to me so you can see what they're about. But anyway, this book is a thriller kind of horror book, does have some supernatural elements going on in it. It is about a woman whose mother is very sick. She was very abusive when they were younger, and she wants to come and stay with her in her end days, and creepy things start happening, and I just thought it was okay. I gave it 3 stars. Next up is Video Night by Adam Cesare, and I really, really enjoyed this book. This is an alien horror. It takes place in Long Island, New York in the 1980s, and I had a fun time with this book. I'm giving it 3.5 stars, rounded up to 4 stars on Goodreads. So this book, the opening scene reminded me of the Lost Boys opening scene, where there is a couple and they're kind of like making out sort of, but the girl's like reading a magazine, and then the vampires come and rip the roof off of this car and steal them away into the night, and they're killed. This is kind of how the opening of this book is, except with an alien invasion. It's this couple, this alien comes, takes out the guy, and gets into the body of a girl named Rhonda, and she goes out and into this little town and starts trying to infect everyone to get all the little alien situation out and take over this town. Don't go into this book expecting like a deep sci-fi explanation for why these aliens are here or where they came from. This isn't that. But it is still a very fun alien horror book. We also follow a teenage boy. He's about 17 years old. He's a video gamer. He likes to stay in, play video games. He's a geek. He gets bullied. And then he has a best friend who is kind of like, you know, tough, and he drinks beer, and he has a girlfriend, and he doesn't like school, but they're best friends. And every Friday night, they have video night where they watch something like on a horror movie on VHS. And it's fun. And one Friday night, Tom wants to invite his girlfriend and have his girlfriend bring over another girl for Billy. Billy is the nerd. For Billy to kind of, you know, try to get to know or whatever. Meanwhile, this alien is doing its thing and all these gruesome things are happening. There's a police officer in it. It just is a really cool story. I had a fun time with this. It was perfect for spooky season just because of all the grotesque stuff that happens. There was definitely a couple body horror things that happened in it that were pretty gross, and I overall really enjoyed it. This is the author of Clown in a Cornfield, and I'm excited to read more of his books because I had a really fun time with it. I didn't think I would love alien horror as much as I did, but I loved it. Next up is Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore. I gave this book 3.5 stars. I highly recommend this book if you are looking for a perfect fall romance. It's super cute. It takes place in this town that has like fall festivals, and it describes all of the fall activities that they're doing. It's very fun. Jeannie is a young woman who has been gifted her aunt's cafe. It's called the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. Her aunt has decided to go off and live her life and travel and do her thing. And Jeannie really needed the change, and so she is trying to get situated in this cafe, and she keeps hearing these creepy noises at night. And one early morning, a local farmer who usually drops off like pumpkins and gourds and vegetables to her aunt has arrived, and he's trying to drop these things off. She kind of just tells him all her business about how she is hearing all these creepy things, and he ends up getting wrangled into trying to help figure out what are all these sounds. He's a grumpy farmer who had his heart broken, so of course he's trying to stay distant, and there's obviously instant attraction, and it's just a cute romance. I gave it 3.5 stars. I would definitely reread this next fall. Next up is Autumn Crow by Cameron Chaney. This is a collection of short stories that takes place in the town Autumn Crow. Initially when I started reading this, I thought it was going to be more of like a middle grade, kind of just creepy collection of short stories, but it surprised me. It gets very scary and gory, a little gory, and I had a fun time. I don't normally like short story collections, but I highly recommend this. This is perfect reading for a fall season. Creepy time, spooky time. It was such an atmospheric collection of short stories. Highly recommend. They all kind of take place in Autumn Crow and sort of blend together. Some of the stories do. And in this Autumn Crow town, it's basically like Halloween Central all of the time. And I had a blast reading this. I gave it 4 stars. I definitely recommend checking it out. The author of this book also has a booktube channel, and it's called Library Macabre, so please check his channel out as well. He has an amazing collection of horror books, and I love watching his videos. The next 5 books I'm going to talk about very quickly because I did do these in a reading vlog, 2 different reading vlogs. Of course, I'll have linked below, as I said before. So let's get into the rest of my 4-star books. Next up is Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell. I had a fantastic time reading this. This was another graphic novel. I gave it 4 stars, and it was just so perfect for this time of year. I see why this book makes people's fall recommendation lists time and time again. It's about 2 teenagers working their last year at a pumpkin patch together. This graphic novel was super cute. I loved the ending so much. I loved all of the descriptions of all of the events and foods. in the pumpkin patch, and it's a great, great read for fall. Then I read Small Spaces by Katherine Arden. This is a middle grade horror book with creepy scarecrows and a really cute story. I had such a fun time with this one. This one is actually in a series, and I look forward to reading the rest of the books in the series, and for this one I gave it 4 stars. Then we have Maeve Fly by CJ Leede. This is an adult horror book, dark horror book, and I gave this one 4 stars. This is typically compared to American Psycho, and I would definitely agree with that. The movie though, because I have not read the book, but there are definitely bits and pieces of it that correlate, and I had a great time reading it, and I gave it 4 stars. And then we have You Again by Kate Goldbeck. This is a romance, and this takes place sometimes in the fall, but I really feel like it's more of kind of a wintry book because there's a lot of New Year's Eve, New Year's celebrations in this, because we are following 2 characters and initially they can't stand each other. So it is a enemies to lovers slow burn, and it is very comparable to When Harry Met Sally. So I would definitely agree with that comparison, and I really enjoyed this book. It is, like I said, a very slow burn romance. It's pretty long too. I think it was about 400 pages, but I loved every minute of it, and I highly recommend. I gave it 4 stars. And then my last 2 books are my 2 favorite books of October, and the first one is Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. I gave this one 4.5 stars. Again, this is in a recent vlog linked below, but this is a romance, dark romance, that is about 2 serial killers who hunt other serial killers, and it was a fun time. I loved the banter. I loved the spicy scenes. Even, I mean, most spicy scenes can be pretty cringy. It's just hard to really write a good, spicy, steamy scene. But I did enjoy this author's writing. I am really looking forward to reading the other books. It is a trilogy, so I'm really looking forward to the other 2 books. They are not out yet, and I am anxiously awaiting them because I had a fantastic time with this, and I gave it 4.5 stars. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars is because I wanted, this sounds twisted, but I wanted more of the serial killer scenes in it because those were really, really funny. One of the descriptions in the synopsis says accidental cannibalism, and that scene was hilarious. And my favorite book of October, which shocked me because I was also very, very intimidated and terrified to read this book, but I did read it because of the Halloween readathon? Halloweekathon. I think it was called Halloweekend readathon. I can't remember, but one of the prompts was read a scary book or your scariest book. And I've been putting reading off this book for many, many years because I was terrified of both the book and the movie, but I am talking about The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. And I gave it 4.5 stars. The only reason it's not 5 stars is because there was a little bit of a pacing situation in the early beginning of the book, but it's fantastic. I recently released my top 10 favorite horror books of all time, and I already know that list is going to change because The Exorcist has definitely made that list of top 10 for me. So the author did the audiobook. I listened to the audiobook and I read the physical copy. I wanted to be fully immersed in this story, even though I was terrified. And the audiobook was fantastic. The author did an amazing job with all of the voices, especially Chris. So if you're not familiar with The Exorcist, it is about Chris. She is an actress and she is a single mom, and her daughter Reagan, I think she's about 11 years old, becomes possessed by a demon, and the emotion and fear and desperation that Chris has to try to figure out what is going on with her daughter, because for a lot of the book she has no idea why her daughter has completely changed physically and mentally. I mean, the transformation throughout this was so frightening. I realized reading it for myself, it's not even the demon possession that makes this book scary. It's just, as a parent, watching your child go through what Reagan went through in this book and the things that she did. Let's just bring up the crucifix scene. That was frightening. And then a lot of other things that she did, very similar to the movie, was shocking and traumatizing. And watching, you know, as a parent, your child do these things and really initially not knowing why, and then getting so desperate that you reach out to a priest because now it's like, I don't know what else is wrong. They did all the medical testing they could. That's kind of where the slower parts happen. She literally takes her through any kind of doctor, psychiatrist she can to try to figure out what is going on with her daughter. And it was just a fantastic book. It really, really was. And yes, there were parts that I was scared. When I first started reading it, I wouldn't read it at night. I would only read it during the day because it was freaking me out. But outside of that, it's a beautiful book. Oh, beautiful? Is that? I don't even know if that's the right word. It's beautifully written, I'll say that, because it is scary as hell. And the ending got me emotional. I literally cried. I cried at the end of this book, and I was not expecting that at all. So I loved it. Like I said, it's definitely going to be in my top 10 favorite horror books of all time. I highly recommend it if you are frightened of the whole demon possession thing. Good reason to be, but it is still a really, really good story. So that's it. Those are all the books that I read in the month of October. I think overall it was a great reading month. Please let me know down below what was your favorite read of October. As always, thank you so much for hanging out. Please hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you guys again soon. See ya.